The real question before everybody out there today, whether you're driving in your automobile on I-95 or A1A in South Florida, whether you're listening on iHeartRadio worldwide, whether you're watching on TeaPartyCommunity.com, whether you're watching on theUnitedWest.com, Breitbart TV, however we are getting to you. If you're a person of conscience, if you're a person of integrity, a person of morality, a person of common sense, the real issue today is, what does it take? What does it take? And over the past 48 hours, we've been looking at this atrocity, this slaughter that took place in Israel. And many people from around the world have been contacting us and asked the question, what does it take? What is it going to take for not just the Israelis, where the offense is taking place, but on a broader scale? What is it going to take for those in the West, those in the Western countries in Europe, those in Canada, in Australia, in New Zealand, those countries impacted by Western civilization, by the Judeo-Christian worldview? This country here in the United States, what is it going to take for those in the West to wake up and say, we are in a religious war with an ideology, with an organization, with a religion, Islamic Jihad, and this religion, proponents of this religion, this system, want the West dead? What is it going to take for Westerners to wake up to those realities? Well, our show, Enemies of the State, generally, and specifically part 2 today of the slaughter, the jihad in Jerusalem, addresses some of these very complex and controversial issues. Nobody likes to say we're in a religious war. But if indeed the facts indicate we are, folks, what do? Avoid the facts and give the enemy an advantage ideologically and operationally? Or do we rise to the occasion in the West and utilize the assets and resources necessary, particularly here in America, the media and information warfare battles? And how do we address our brothers and sisters in Israel, who right now are being targeted by the Islamic jihadis? Questions that we don't sidestep, we don't fear analyzing. In fact, we spend our time thinking seriously about these issues. Hi to everybody, Tom Trento here on the 19th of November, Wednesday, the 19th of November. And if you're a sentient human being, if blood is flowing through your veins and oxygen is still going in and out of your nostrils, you're aware of the fact that there's some real serious problems in Israel, in particular in Jerusalem. But you're also more generally aware that the Islamic State is propagating a war initially on Muslims internally that aren't following their playbook, which is the Quran. And then as they accomplish their objectives militarily and ideologically there, they're going to move, as they said in their magazine, Dabiq, out to various areas. One of those, the United States of America, one of those, Israel. This is the game plan of the enemy. When do we wake up? When do we realize it? And does Josh Earnest, the press secretary for the president, speak to us? Is President Obama the real articulation of the understanding of Islamic Jihad? Hey, look, there's offenses on both sides, too much killing on both sides. This is nonsensical. This president, who's influenced from an African roots and from Islamic roots, favors, as we have said and substantiated, favors the Islamic point of view in life and has disdain for the Jewish view of life. We know that. But he has to say enough to keep his Jewish friends, nice and happy, and keep the people in Capitol Hill nice and happy. Well, we're here to expose that, open that up, seriously address these issues. Hi, everybody. Another show, another day, and a lot of stuff for you. We have a special guest that we'll get to in a little bit from Israel, my host in Israel, and one of our correspondents on the ground on national security issues. We'll get to him in a little bit. But Mark, you had something to say.
It's this. You're right. Where is the outrage? Let's get along. We have both sides have issues and stuff like that. That's just wrong. I mean, Netanyahu said it best. He goes, we need to have world outrage and world condemnation on this issue. Think of it like this. After 9/11, the World Trade Centers were just blown up. Or after a beheading here in America. People are outraged here in America. I mean, what would happen if the Prime Minister Netanyahu or the people around the world came out and says, well, the Muslims, they have their issues and, their plight over there, and they kind of felt like they had to attack the Twin Towers and blow them up. I mean, how would that react over here? The same issues happening. This is a horrific event in one of the most holiest places against civilians. How much worse does it get, Tom?
That's why I changed my vote.
That's right,
To the
Schmucky Putznick
Republican
here.
Party, because this administration thinks nothing of Israel. It's hatred, and I had enough of this Democratic Party. Enough.
Now we need the rest of your Jewish brothers and
Wake
sisters.
up, you liberal Jews.
Yeah,
Wake the hell up.
That's right. We need a little more. The issues are real. And look, it's human nature in the West, human nature in Israel. We've been there several times now, and the Israelis want peace. They truly do. They want to build their businesses. They want to go to the promenade in Tel Aviv. They want to go down to Eilat, enjoy life, enjoy their families, and they simply don't want to be bothered by people trying to kill them for 2,000 years. I mean, is that a lot to ask for? That's what they want. But unfortunately, God had placed them in a homeland that other people say is theirs, and thus the conflict. But you know what? As we've said 1,000 times on the show, the land really isn't the issue at all. Because before 1948, the Jewish world was dispersed throughout virtually every nation in the world, and there was still an effort to have a final solution to rid the world of Jews when they weren't even consolidated in their homeland, though there's been an unbroken chain of Jewish people in Israel for the past 4,000 years. But you know what?
Yes.
Historical facts, philosophical facts, theological facts are irrelevant when it comes to the system of Islam. Which
They mean nothing to us. Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
We can deny.
Let me ask you, Imam Abdullah,
Yes.
why do not facts, and I'm thinking of Anjem Chowdhury, who we interviewed not too long ago,
Oh, yes.
why do facts not matter in this geopolitical situation of Muslims and Israelis? Jews?
Because the facts get in the way of our supremacist ideology. It is very hard for us to
Very true.
accept these facts when we believe that everything that was once ours will be ours into the future. So the fact that you say that you have artifacts dating back 4,000 years in Jerusalem, it means nothing to us.
And that's a critical point to understand as you're driving in your automobiles at 14 minutes after 4 o'clock in South Florida. Tom Trento, host of Enemies of the State, part 2 today of the jihad in Jerusalem that we talked about. And we want to stress the point right now, folks, that the last thing in the world you ought to do if you have plans to go over to Israel, and we know many in South Florida do at this time of the year, do not cancel your plans. Do not let a fear of any sort obstruct you from doing what you plan to do. Israel's an extremely safe country. Mark made the point yesterday that if you're willing to cancel your plans to go to Israel because of this event that took place in Jerusalem, then if you're going to LA or if you're going to Chicago or if you're going to New York, you need to cancel all plans traveling anywhere because the murder rate in these cities is infinitely higher than the murder rate in Israel by all metrics and all measurements possible.
Particularly the example Mark put up yesterday, which happens to be Obama's, quote, hometown. Because we
Chicago. Yeah, everybody wants to go to Chicago for Thanksgiving, and it's beautiful in Chicago for Thanksgiving.
Yes.
66.2% of the people in this room lived in Chicago. We know what Thanksgiving is like. It's beautiful there. We want you to go to those places, but we also want you to go to Israel right now. We want you to come with us March 2015 on our 10-day fact-finding mission. And we're going to go, and our guests that we're going to bring on a little bit hooked me up with a lot of very interesting people, some of whom we will have speaking to us on this briefing. You will come back as energized and passionate as we are about Israel being our #1 national security partner. I want to lay out a little bit of the context for this particular show at 16 minutes past 4 o'clock, and then go to some of the hot issues that are taking place right now. And here's what's important. Again, there's a tendency in the West to look at events in an isolated manner and simply say, oh, that event took place, so we ought to interpret it as an independent event that occurred in a vacuum. That is geopolitically wrong, intellectually wrong, academically wrong, philosophically wrong. We have to interpret these events in a broader context, and when you have an enemy that has launched a war against the West, which Islamic Jihad has, you have to interpret these events as part of their operational capabilities, understanding it that way, analyzing it. And here's a couple of points to do just that. I know this stuff is a little complicated, but our listeners and viewers are very astute, very erudite individuals, and you can handle all of this. There we go. The beheading that was recently perpetrated against Kasich, what was his first name? The young guy, the soldier, Mr. Kasich. That beheading took place not in some anonymous part of a desert somewhere, but it took place in, as the Islamic State said, the city of Dabiq, D-A-B-I-Q. That is critically important. The Kasich beheading took place in Dabiq. We're showing you right now, for the sake of our listeners, the magazine called Dabiq, which is the magazine of the Islamic State. The reason the beheading took place in Dabiq is to convey to the West, convey to all Americans and all Jews, that the Islamic State is advancing prophetically. They believe that the Quranic scriptures provide the fulfillment of prophecy for Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, or Caliph Ibrahim. He has two names. Abu Bakr was the first caliph after Muhammad, so he's from Baghdad. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, Abu Bakr from Baghdadi, he's showing the lineage of the blood relation and political relationship to Muhammad. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who took the name Caliph Ibrahim, is saying the Quranic scriptures speak of me being the new caliph, and in the Quranic scriptures and the Hadith and the Sunnah, one of the great battles at the end times will take place in the city of Dabiq. That's why it's so important to the Islamic State, to all Muslims, and that's why they named their magazine Dabiq. This beheading took place in Dabiq to tell the Western world, we are here and we are fulfilling prophecy. Two reasons for that. One, to tell the West what's going on, but number two, to tell the Muslims involved in the jihad right now, you need to come to Syria, you need to join the Islamic State, and the Islamic State has grown from 10,000 to 200,000 right now, fully financed, growing like crazy, and withstanding the pinpoint bombing of the United States. Now, if that's true, which it is, what I just said, then the message the Islamic State is conveying to the world is, now is our time to strike, to bring about the end times. You may think this is crazy stuff, folks. This is their philosophy, their theology, their eschatology. Eschatology means their study of the end times. Now, Picture that you're a 20-year-old Muslim somewhere on the face of the earth, and you're seeing the beheading take place in Dabiq. You're seeing the prophetic connection to the magazine and to the Quran. And you start reading Dabiq, their magazine. And you read in that magazine that it instructs every Muslim to launch an independent jihad wherever they may be. And it instructs them to launch these jihads, these independent jihads, with whatever assets they have in front of them. If you have a knife, use a knife. If you have a meat cleaver, use a meat cleaver. If you have an automobile, use an automobile. These instructions are in the magazine Dabiq. Do you think out of the clear blue sky for the past 2 weeks, Muslims use their automobiles and knives and meat cleavers because they just decided to do that? These are instructions coming down from the Islamic State to jihadis all over the place, in particular in Israel. And you're seeing the operational instructions from the Islamic State, we call it the Islamic State syndrome, being played out in real life in Jerusalem just a day ago. Guess what? More of this is going to happen. Let's go to our expert in Israel, Arie Gozi. Arie, are you with us, dear sir?
He will be in a minute.
He will be in a moment.
He will be in a moment.
We got to bring him in.
Yes, we do.
Our satellite is getting into position.
And
Over,
3, 2, 1.
Okay.
Gozi.
How you doing? There you go.
Okay.
Hey, Gozi, you there?
Yes.
I
there-
go. Yes.
Did he hear everything I just said?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, he
good,
did.
good.
Well, you have to ask him if he was listening. He
Are
had the
you listening
capability
to what I
hear
said,
it.
Gozi? Okay. Hey, folks, we've had Arie on several times for the past month or so, and then he was graciously hosted me in Israel, and we went to some fascinating meetings with different people. Maybe we'll get into that. But tell us how you're doing.
Mute.
Mute your button. You got your mute button there, Tom. I gave you a mute button.
Still shaking.
Yeah, and now you got to turn your mute button
Still
back
shaking this, whatever I picked up in Israel. What fell down?
on. Anyway, so
That's nothing.
So Arie, you'd like to make a comment on that?
Arie, how are you, first of all? Do we have a good time or not in Israel?
Yes, I'm good. These are very hard days in Israel now, especially after what happened yesterday in Jerusalem in the morning. Of course, you know the details. 4 people were slaughtered in a synagogue in Jerusalem, and a policeman that was wounded died in the hospital afterwards. Policemen were on the scene in seconds and killed the two terrorists that used a gun and a butcher's cleaver, as they call, to kill 4 people that just wanted to pray, the morning prayer. That was their sin. So we are in a very bad mood in Israel today, and especially when we know that this will not stop, because you look at the incitement initiated by the Fatah and Hamas. I thought about it. It's a combination of Nazi and ISIS propaganda. If you see
Yes.
the cartoons that they use on the social networks, it's amazing. It's really, they have some experts that taught very, very thoroughly the methods that the Nazis used against the Jews many years ago, and now they improved it. So people are affected by this. So they are called, as you said, they are called to use their cars, their axes, their knives to kill Jews just because they are Jews. And this is a very complicated situation, especially when, to my opinion, the government is not doing enough to stop it. Because Benjamin Netanyahu, our prime minister, yesterday had a speech to the nation, and we expected from him to tell on some harsh steps that he is going to take, and nothing. They ruined, they destroyed the house of a guy that made a terrorist attack a few weeks ago. But just imagine that Hezbollah or Al-Qaeda can come to New York, drive cars with local number plates, identify. You don't have ID cards like in Israel, but maybe they have American social security cards, and go everywhere and just stab people. These people that live in the eastern suburbs of Jerusalem can go anywhere. They can be here near my house. They can be in Tel Aviv. By the way, yesterday, a Palestinian was caught in a railway station in Tel Aviv. People suspected him. He was taken down, and police came. They found a submachine gun in his bag.
Facebook page.
Sorry, yeah. You wanted to ask me something.
No, I was telling Damon, you sent me that picture earlier of that submachine gun. We're going to pull that picture up.
Up on the Facebook page.
It's an old Carl Gustav submachine gun. It's a Swedish one originally, but it was manufactured under license in Egypt. And it was used by the first terrorists that penetrated Israel in the 50s, in the 60s, and 70s. They took this old Carl Gustav and they attached some parts to it, but it's a deadly weapon. And if people would not have traced something and take him down, and the police, he would kill people in a railway station in central Tel Aviv, a place that we drove by many times while you were in Israel.
Yeah, that train station. Let's take this in pieces, folks. We are with Arie Gozi, and Arie does a lot of things. Been a journalist for a very long time. Has connections all over the place, and has some great restaurants too. But is in the midst of a national tragedy. It's 27 minutes after 4 o'clock on the East Coast. Tom Trento with you, WSBR AM on your radio, 740 on the dial. Arie, let's explain the geography for the folks a little bit. We have the nation of Israel, which is the size of New Jersey. Then there's Jerusalem, which is a major city in Israel. But then there's the old city, or the holy city, in the midst of Jerusalem. And the old city is essentially cut in half, the east side and the west side. East side is, everything's controlled by Israeli security, but the east side is the Arab section, making this simple. And the west side is the Israeli section. But there's a unique designation in Israel with license plates for cars. Explain how that works to our American folks there who may not be familiar with how your license plate system works.
Our license plates are yellow. I have a yellow license plate on my car, and the Palestinians that live in the eastern suburbs of Jerusalem have the same number plates, and they have blue ID cards. They're not citizens, but they have a special status. But if you look at if they show an ID card, it's like mine. It's a normal plastic covered blue ID card. So they drive cars with Israeli number plates. They have blue ID cards, and they can go everywhere, and they can execute terror acts everywhere. This is crazy.
Now, what about your white license plates? What are those all about?
Sorry?
The white license plates. What does that distinguish?
The white license plates are of the Palestinian that in another area. But the Jerusalem eastern suburbs, which house hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, they have been annexed to Israel. So they have cars with Israeli number plate. No distinction between the number plate on my car and theirs, and this is crazy. Only this morning the police put some roadblocks, but that will hold for 2-3 days. But something should be done to tell the people that this is a Palestinian. So look out for trouble, because at this situation now, we cannot be prepared to anything. This is crazy.
Well, let's establish for our audience the importance of this thing on.
Yeah.
Let's establish the importance of Abu Mazen and what the heck he is saying and doing, and how that affects the Palestinians in Israel, in particular in Jerusalem. Abu Mazen is the name used primarily in Israel for Mahmoud Abbas, and they told me that Abu means father, and Mazen is the first son. So the Arabs are very proud of their first son. But these names were used as code names when they were all members of the terrorist group, the PLO, right? So what is Abu Mazen saying? How does that affect the Palestinians? And what is the Hamas saying out of the Gaza Strip? And how does that affect the Palestinians throughout Israel?
The Hamas says it openly, kill Jews. Kill Jews, wherever you can kill Jews. Abu Mazen is more sophisticated because he is a more intelligent guy, and he wears a suit and a tie, and he is not using incitement directly. But when a terror act is being executed by a Palestinian, he hails them. He said that they are heroes. So this is indirect incitement, and the effect on the Palestinian is the same. He doesn't say go and kill Israelis. He's clever. The Hamas in Gaza, they are saying go kill, rape, whatever you can. But the effect on the Palestinians is the same. When he says he hails the young man that used his car to kill people near the light train station in Jerusalem, when he says he did something good for the Palestinians, the effect is the same.
Yeah,
it's two different ways of saying the same thing.
It's like
incitement. It's incitement, which at the bottom line says go kill Jews because they are Jews.
All right, so 31 minutes after the hour, folks, we are part 2 of our Jerusalem Jihad, and we're detailing this, analyzing this, getting a briefing from Arie Gozi in Israel, live from Israel. Israel's Homeland Security Home. That's the website, Israel's Homeland Security Home. Arie is the general editor of a website that deals with extensive homeland security issues from military operational components to hardware to conferences to every element related to Israel's national security. Arie's in the middle of that. And the point we're making right now, critically important point, is that the peace partner for Israel is two aberrant entities. One is the Hamas. Now, you got to be insane to think that you could have any sort of peace process with the Hamas that openly says, we have to kill our peace partner and obliterate them to the sea. But that's the way the world is right now, and that's the way our president wants the Israelis to respond to the Hamas, figure out a way to work out with them. The other part of this aberrant collaboration of these two groups is the Palestinian Authority, and they are just as bad. They just say things a little differently, and they wear, $1,000, $2,000 suits. So we're analyzing this for you. But we're putting it into context of the absurdity of the piece at this point. Damon has a question. Then I want to ask you about Naftali Bennett.
It's not so much a question as it's just something I've been hearing quite a bit lately. And it's that a radical Muslim wants to chop your head off, and a moderate Muslim wants to see that radical chop your head off.
Wants to cheer him as he chops it off, yeah.
And that's basically
exactly what Abu Mazen is doing, yeah.
Now,
the words peace process, there was no peace process, there is no peace process, and there will not be peace process. This is, I cannot use the words that you said against the law, but you know what I mean.
Beep, beep. We got to keep beeping, Arie.
It didn't exist, it doesn't exist, it will not exist in the future. There are no partners for peace, because they want something very special, very specific, to kill the Israelis, to throw us in the sea, and to overtake the places where we live now. So they are not partners, not the Hamas and not the Fatah, pure and simple, without any...
No peace. All right, Mark, you have a thought.
Yeah, I got a question for you, Arie. I know that you might be aware of this, but how aware is the Israeli public about groups in America funding and supporting, in particular, Hamas, like CARE, Islamic Society North America, NATE, and are they aware of that support from America in general?
You mean groups in America that support Hamas?
Yes. Are you? Would you say that there is a understanding of that process is occurring, or like CARE specifically? Because we just had CARE listed by the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, as a supporter of Hamas, along with the Muslim American Society. And how aware are the people of Israel of that fact?
I think the people of Israel are aware of that fact. A few weeks ago, there was a TV story in one of the Israeli channels about a small town in the U.S. I can't remember what the name. That is, it has a majority of Muslims, and we are aware. I'm not talking about the Israeli intelligence, but people in Israel are aware that extreme Islam is openly operating in the U.S.
Right.
Of course. If you stop someone in the street, he will tell you that he knows and he sees in Europe and in the States. And while Tom was in Israel, I met a guy from South Africa who told me amazing stories about extreme Islam in South Africa. South Africa is not in the lights. We look at Europe and the US, but he told me stories about the penetration of extreme Islam in South Africa, which I was shocked.
Yeah.
So they are all around. Yeah.
Yeah, and we definitely need to take some steps within ourselves to actually get that financing stopped from America over to, and also we have a huge BDS movement over here in America running on the campuses to boycott, what is it, Damon?
Boycott, divest, and sanction.
Is a huge BDS movement to boycott goods in Israeli factories, like the SodaStream, for example. We need to really make that aware to the Israeli public and make it aware that we need to take action against these groups in America to stop this channel of money coming over from these groups, and also to shut down these groups and the rhetoric on college campuses.
All right, well, here's where we are. Arie and all of our viewers and listeners, Tom Trento here, 38 minutes after 4 o'clock on a chilly Florida afternoon. If you notice, I have a long sleeve shirt on, which I never wear, rarely, but it's cold.
Right.
In Florida.
But you're
right
still
now.
Wearing flip-flops. It's so
No,
cold,
I'm
he's still
not.
wearing flip-flops.
I'm fully dressed under the table. I have my Sunday best
That's
on
right.
under the
He
table.
is. That's right.
What we're doing, folks, this is part 2 of our Jerusalem Jihad series, and we're essentially making several key points. 1, go support Israel. If you were planning on going there for any sort of holidays or vacation, go there. Do not let what you're hearing that's occurring out there stop you. And even more importantly, come with us. And we need people to move fast if you want to come with us. The seats are filling up. It's only going to be a small bus, about 40 people. If you want to come with us, go contact me, Tom at theunitedwest.org. Tom at theunitedwest.org. We'll send you all the information. It costs about $3,000 to go over there for about 10, 12 days and meet Arie. We'll meet him for sure, and many others. Be briefed. I was up in the northwestern corner of the Lebanese border. We went all along the Galilee, down along the Golan. We went on Sunday when I first got there. Arie and his friend took me down to Gaza, right outside Gaza, to Nefrim, a kibbutz there. We've talked about that yesterday. You've got to come with us on this trip. You got to go to Israel. But we're also putting into perspective that the events that are occurring right now, this jihad, is not an isolated kind of, the natives are a little restless, this will pass. This is all part of a protracted plan,
Yes, it is.
initiated years ago, but now energized by the Islamic State. The Islamic State syndrome means that in the Islamic world, in the Muslim world, when the bad guys, and just picture Saladin in the Middle Ages,
Right.
or Muhammad in the 7th century, when the bad guys are victorious in their military battles, all the Muslims want to go there and support that adventure.
Takbir!
Absolutely. So now that the victory the Islamic State is having in Syria is so exciting to these jihadis that they want to get to Syria to fight, but many of them just simply can't do that. So the Islamic State said, fight where you are. So we are
Right.
seeing the outworkings of the Islamic State syndrome, and also in collaboration with the Palestinian Authority and the Hamas. This is going to spill over, and already has, into the United States. That's why it's critically important to understand what's taking place. You have a member of the Knesset, Naftali Bennett, who now is calling for a military operation to put an end to this nonsense. What does that mean, Arie?
He's a minister. He's not just a member of Knesset. He's a minister. He is called in Israel an extremist, but he says that Israel should take some extreme measures to put an end to this terror wave, as it's being called. I agree with him. I tell you, the measures that have been taken so far by the police. Yesterday there was an idea to mobilize some army units, not police, army units into Jerusalem. And some of the Knesset members were against it. How can you use army inside Jerusalem? This is an emergency. People are being killed. So if you have to use army, use army. If you have to use Air Force, Armored Corps, everything, you have to stop the killing. So Naftali Bennett, I think, is saying what many people think in Israel. By the way, he was yesterday interviewed by the BBC, and in the middle of the interview, he showed a photograph taken of one of the men killed in the synagogue, and they demanded that he take this picture off the screen, and they said that this is not done in a British television. So he is trying to show the facts as they are. By the way, the first report yesterday by CNN said that Israeli police shot 2 Palestinians.
Jeez.
And then an uproar started, and they apologized. By the first report, you could understand that Israeli police just for fun shot 2 Palestinians. They didn't say that they were terrorists. So the international media, and some of the media, not only in the States but in Europe, are distorting the facts.
No.
Distorting the facts.
Distorting the facts against Israel?
No, I was watching the main media over here last night about this story, and it at best it was a parody. You know, there's conflicts over there. There was no outrage whatsoever on the ABC, CBS, or NBC News. There was no outrage. It was parody. Well, this conflict, and the violence keeps going back and forth, and it driving me crazy. I mean, I was saying earlier on the show that if after 9/11 Israel were to say, well, you need to understand the Muslims and understand understand their mentality. No, we are. Everybody should be outraged at this completely horrific event.
Absolutely. Hey, Arie, we're at 44 minutes after 4 o'clock. We have Arie Gozi, Israel's Homeland Security Home, if you can put his website up.
Yeah, I guess you got it.
Tell everybody, take a minute to tell folks what you do and what your website does.
We established this website 2 years ago, right now, in November 2 years ago, because we understood that following 9/11, a new thing was invented: Homeland Security. It's not defense. It's not defending yourself from enemies from outside your borders. It's defending yourself from the enemy within. And Israel, because of the situation in Israel, Israel became a leading force in Homeland Security technologies and techniques. And this website is dealing with those techniques and technologies, and it's a big success. We are in Hebrew and English, and people are reading us all over the world. We have thousands of readers every day, and we try to bring all the advanced technologies of homeland security and experts that talk about homeland security. And we made the right decision 2 years ago, because the best proof is a success, and we are very successful.
All right, that's perfect. That's very, very good to know. We're looking for right now, you see us jumping around back here. We're looking for a video that, a little music video that Hamas put out. I don't know if you had a chance to see it. A new hit song. They did it in Hebrew, and it hit the airwaves of Hamas-affiliated social media. And it's designed to strike fear in the hearts of the Israelis. Have you had a chance to look at this yet? We're trying to pull it up right now. Can you pull it up? You can't pull it up? Have you seen that by any chance? I think I sent you.
No, I didn't see it. No.
It's a Palestinian video.
They do it very frequently, yes, in Hebrew, in broken Hebrew. They try to tell us a story to frighten us.
Yeah, they made a cartoon already about using their cars to run you over and kill you.
Yes, they're doing it all the time, yes.
Well, this is the battle, folks, that we're talking about. There's two battles going on right now in the Western world. And whether you want to believe it or not, Osama bin Laden declared war on the United States in 1996, and nobody took that seriously, and look how the world has changed. Well, the Islamic State, with its affiliates, Al-Qaeda, Jamaat al-Nusra, Boko Haram, I mean, all these are subsets of the Islamic Jihad movement. They have two components to their advancement of the caliphate. One is the military operational end, where they're shooting and killing people to gain territory and to keep it. The other is information warfare, and that's where we live for the most part. They're trying now, the Islamic State, to use social media, and they've brought people from Stoughton, Massachusetts, in jihadis, to develop their social media capabilities to persuade public opinion to accept their view of life. And they become very sophisticated in their production of magazines, of billboards, of cartoons, of music videos. And this stuff works not only in the Islamic world, but also in the Western world for people that are disillusioned with the Western way of life. So we're going to try to show you in a second one of these cartoons they put together. They did it in Hebrew to strike fear in the hearts of Israelis. What is the general feeling of the average Israeli on the street right now in regards to what's taking place, Arie?
People are very angry. People are frightened. Young women are frightened that their kids are going to the kindergarten in the morning, and Palestinians are working in a building site nearby. People are very worried about things, because it can happen any minute, with a car, with a knife, with an axe, and there is more police in the streets. And yesterday they said that people of Jerusalem will be easier to get a gun permit for Jerusalem people, but this is not enough. This is not enough, because we cannot go armed 24/7, and to something more drastic should be done. And I hope that the Israeli government finally understand that something more drastic should like curfew, like roadblocks, like demolishing houses of those terrorists and their families. What has been done so far is very little, very late, and I hope that Netanyahu and his ministers will. I know that they understand, but they're afraid of the world, the U.S. and the Europeans that will call them and say, "Hey, this is against democracy. You are very advanced. How can you use this method against terrorists? With terrorists, you have to deal with force, with brutal force, not just force." And I hope that Netanyahu and his ministers finally understand and take the needed steps to stop this wave of terrorism. Israelis are very worried.
Well, something took place last night. I'm going to bring you some video in a second for our audience. It's 50 minutes after 4 o'clock. Just have a few minutes left in the show, folks. We have Arie Gozi with us, general editor for Israel's Homeland Security Home, a website dealing with all types of homeland security issues and military, industrial components. Just a fabulous place. Go there. Check it out. And the big idea for our show today is that what's taking place in Israel is not something taking place over there and not something unrelated to us. It simply is one of the battlefields in the Islamic State's effort to take over the world as they believe prophetically they ought to. And if you don't think these sort of things can have an immediate transitional impact in your life, just go back to September 11th, 2001. Because right now, if you get an Islamic State 20-year-old jihadi, he gets his hand on a suitcase nuke, and somehow it gets into New York City or Chicago or Los Angeles. You had two guys a day ago run in on a suicide mission with a butcher cleaver. You don't think if they get something that goes real big bang, they're not going to explode that wherever they can? If the means and the opportunity presents itself, the motive is there. This is stuff for everyone. And it was very interesting to see last night in Jerusalem. A bunch of Israelis got together to protest and to start saying we need to fight back. Do we have that footage queued up where we can show the folks? Yeah, we have. Take a look at this, everybody. And for the listening audience, we'll tell you what's going on. What we have on screen is hundreds of Israelis in downtown Jerusalem with Israeli flags, men, women, all different ages, very peacefully protesting, standing in solidarity. We'll let you listen to it.
This is Jane Keel from Israel One Nation. I'm down at the String Bridge. There's a rally for demonstrating for the...
This is the first video.
This is Jane. This is Jerusalem Jane shooting this, and she's narrating it a little bit. Hard to hear her, but she's explaining what's going on.
Streets mobbed.
The streets are mobbed. There's
Cops on horseback.
It's really something you don't normally see in Israel. When I was over there recently, we can come back to it. When I was over there recently, we talked about a grassroots movement. And a grassroots movement is not something known to Israelis, where average people, get up and move to impact their government or to impact public opinion. Maybe we'll have to help them with that. But this is how these things start. You see this slaughter of people in a place of prayer, totally undefended, slaughtered by Islamic jihadis, and now the street, you talk about the Arab street, the Israeli street is starting to awaken. Arie, we're going to have to let you go in a second, but what does it mean to you to see hundreds of men and women of all ages standing in the street, standing in solidarity and saying we need to do something?
That's the normal thing to do. I think that this will pick up and more people will go to the streets because we are all worried. Because this can happen in Tel Aviv. I said only last night, this guy was caught with a submachine gun. They are all over. I think the Israelis, it's a democratic country, and the citizens are more than allowed to put some pressure on the government in a democratic way. So I think that more demonstrations like this one in Jerusalem will take place in the coming days until the government understands that it has to take some more extreme measures or steps to stop this wave, because we cannot live in that atmosphere that you have to look behind the shoulder to be This is not the way to live. You are here. You know that Israelis want to live peacefully, want to sit in restaurants, in cafes, go to the beach. And this wave of terror, the government job, the government responsibility is to stop it, and to stop it with every power it has. And you know that the Israeli defense forces have many ways of dealing with that, but a decision should be made not to look what the world says, the US and the Europeans, to say what is good for Israel. That's it.
That is very, very important. Israel can't worry about world opinion. I got 1 minute left with you, and I got a question for you. If you are an advisor to Abu Mazen, Mahmoud Abbas, what is he thinking right now? He's looking at all of this. They got to respond some way. What do you think is going on in the minds of the Palestinian Authority right now?
You know that Spain and Sweden have declared that Palestinian is a state. Yesterday in Spain, it's not worth much, but it's a declaration. He expects that more countries will say that Palestinian Authority is a state, and then he wants to go to the UN Security Council and get an approval that the Palestinian Authority is a state, and he thinks that this will put pressure on Israel. But this is no way to get to something solid. So it will not be called the Palestinian Authority, it will be called the Palestinian State. So what? So what? He doesn't have an airport, doesn't have he is fully independent on Israel. So instead of sitting down and talking some sense, he is inciting people in an indirect way to kill more Israelis. This will never bring him or us to any good solution. That's my opinion.
Okay, and we appreciate that. You take care, stay safe. We'll see you next week, or maybe sooner if we need to get some information. Everybody, Arie Gozi, give him a hand from Israel.
Thank you very much, Tom. Bye-bye.
You take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching the language.
That's right, huh? You'd have to beep him out this time.
I know.
What do you think, guys? We've got about a minute left.
Well, I think
We're never using J post together again.
I think this could all be traced back to June 4th, 2009, when Barack Hussein Obama in Cairo, Egypt, let it be known that we were going to abandon our traditional allies, and he allowed the quote, Arab Spring to come over, and this is the end result. The end result of that speech is dead Jews in Jerusalem, not to mention all the carnage in all the other countries along the way.
Well, and also...
Interesting point.
Also, the funding coming over from the United States from groups like CARE and Islamic Society North America Islamic Trust, all these Muslim Brotherhood groups are going in to not only support Hamas, but going in to support Fatah and everybody else because of their alliance and allegiance. It's one big pot that this whole stuff is going into. And the end result, after all that money that is raised in America, is blowing up of synagogues like this.
And another fascinating component, and we're gonna give it more time because it needs to be developed, and it's really going to take off in the next day or so, is this very bizarre marriage of CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, with Al Sharpton and Spike Lee and all these folks in Ferguson, Missouri. This is bizarre beyond imagination, but we're going to take a look.
Hey, I got to give one second. I got to give a quick hat tip. Anybody who is not watching Megyn Kelly, she's been nailing it the last month or so, and right now she's nailing it too. She's bringing about this CARE story. Go ahead. Let's
bring all of that together in the next day or so too. So, hey, go to Israel. Don't be afraid. The country's a tremendous country. We're going to expose more and more of this nonsense, but recognize from a national security perspective, it's essential, ladies and gentlemen, that the United States increases its relationship militarily, ideologically, informationally with Israel. We're launching a 2-year campaign to do just that. Stay tuned. See you tomorrow.